Well, children are bearing the brunt of the lack of food and aid into the Gaza Strip. The UN's Children's Agency, UNICEF, has called Israel's actions in Gaza a war on children. There has been a surge in acute malnutrition among young children in the Strip. The number of children requiring hospitalisation because of this is rapidly rising, but the health system is collapsing. UNICEF's global spokesman, James Elder, has visited the al-Shifa hospital in northern Gaza to assess medical services needed to provide for injured people and children. Talking to Al Jazeera's Hani Mahmoud, he described the systematic destruction of the healthcare system in Gaza.
Look, UNICEF's fortunate in that we have a very broad mandate. So we do cash transfers. We're the ones keeping the desalination plant open, which is millions of litres of water, psychological support. We still do nutritional support, but of those life-saving things like nutritional support for children, incubators, no, we know we're at a fraction of what we need to be, and that's because of consistent denials on blocks on the most basic things that healthcare staff need and, in turn, children and mums need.
Right. In terms of the children, let's talk a little bit about the children. They are bearing the brunt of this conflict, the devastation, the ongoing bombardment, the trauma as a result of this. One important element missing is vaccination. What's the latest update in terms of your efforts or UNICEF efforts to provide much needed vaccination for children?
Yeah, we're the biggest vaccinator in the world, so Gaza is such a critical place. Important for audiences to remember too that Gaza had one of the best vaccinations in the world. This is how mums and dads see vaccines, the same way they see education. Right at the top, they'll do anything to make it happen. Now in this war zone, like everything, it's being delayed, obstructed, denied. We got vaccines in, UNICEF got vaccines in a few months ago. That can be a game changer if we are allowed to safely distribute them, and then if hospitals can function the way they're meant to do it. So it's not enough to be allowed to bring vaccines in. You've got to have a healthcare system that can then administer them, and this healthcare system is under systematic devastation. There's somehow too, there's a dark irony. Yes, vaccines are life-saving. That's what UNICEF does across the board. Vaccines are life-saving. Whilst we are allowed to bring vaccines in, we're seeing a devastation of a health system, and we've seen 50,000 girls and boys killed or wounded. So vaccines are allowed to be brought in by the occupying power, presumably to protect children from preventable diseases, and at the same time, those same very children are being bombed and hit by air attacks and tank shells and artillery fire every single day.
Can you share with us your take on the many hundreds, thousands of cases that you've seen so far in terms of the impact of this devastation on the mental and the physical development of the children? Malnutrition now is taking its toll on children. What is the likely impact on children's growth?
Look, there's so much discussion on famine, and it's important because when famine hits, it's mass death, but it's also too late. So we've got to look at what's been happening here. Consistently, there is a stranglehold. Right now we're seeing it on the food that Palestinians need and are legally entitled to in any frame of law. There's a stranglehold, then there's international pressure, and that's loosened, then the international pressure wanes and it's tightened again. So yeah, famine has been warded off. But before famine comes starvation of a child. Starvation is where the body starts to shut down and you get cognitive decline. That is happening. A child's body in Gaza is not waiting for some official declaration. So that's part of it. We know, unfortunately, from all the crises UNICEF works in, when you deprive nutrition over a sustained amount of period, you can get stunting. Now this Gaza is a bedrock of education in the region. It's the pride of so much of the Middle East because of the literacy rates, because so many people here have multiple languages. No matter what occurs here, over 20 years, parents and grandparents do everything they possibly can to educate a child. But if we are now seeing, as we are, the systematic deprivation of children through a lack of nutrition, that cognitive decline, then the evidence is clear. You risk that child, you risk their family, you risk that community, and ultimately you risk an economy and a society. And that is what we are seeing in Gaza, a systematic devastation of agriculture, of an economy, of a health system, of education, and now of the very things children need to survive and thrive, such as nutrition.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.